I don't even have the chat open because I was talking so much. I forgot to open it. This is like what I do best, talk a lot. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Laura. Okay. And what that means is if you have a question, you can put it in the chat. You can also simply unmute, tell us what your question is. So Rob's website is why people click. He's extremely good at what he does. His SEO is great. He's Google certified and a nice guy. So
thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So the nuts and bolts here is that this is what we're going to do tonight. We're not going to install the plugin because you should know how to do that. And if you don't, we've got videos. But then we're going to run through the wizard, talk about keywords and phrases, talk about snippets, and then talk about the lights, SEO analysis. There's a lot to do. So if I move too fast, just yell. Okay. Whoops, I skipped a slide. When you have successfully installed Yoast, you will get the wizard. You'll get this pretty little screen, which you can go past and not buy the pro version and do all that other stuff. So now we're going to go to the wizard. So the wizard is when you install Yoast, you get all these choices. I just admitted somebody. Rob, keep your eye on that, please, if you hear a beep. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just did.
Okie dokie. So we're going to look at the free parts of the plugin, and Yoast will give you lots of reminders that they sell a pro copy. They're getting a little naggy, in my opinion, but they write one of the best plugins, most used plugins on the planet, so I don't get very critical.
If you don't like it, try all-in-one SEO.
Yeah, it's an alternative.
Yeah.
I don't know how many installs that have. It's significant. I just don't know if it's equal to what Yoast got. We can look. All right. So in the wizard, you need to tell Yoast these things. What's the name of your website? I mean, that sounds silly to remind people, but you need to know the name of your website. You need to know the subtitle. So it doesn't say just another WordPress blog. And then you need your logo handy if you have one. You need it in a size that works. And you need to know what kind of business you run. So knowing those things, the next thing Yoast is going to want to do is examine your site. And you can have it do all of these and let it configure for you. Laura, go right ahead.
Is the subtitle, would that be the tagline?
Yeah.
Is that another word for it?
On the settings page, it's the second line down on settings.
Okay.
So it doesn't automatically go into your SEO title, but it should describe your site. I mean, it should tell Google a little bit about what you do. So now you can let Yoast do this. And then you can start working with SEO. So we just went through probably what takes you 10 or 15 minutes to do on your own site. And now we're going to go take a look at some of the new SEO settings. They've moved features around. They changed the shape in the last 6 or 8 months. And if you're missing something, it's there. You just have to find it. So we go to the settings page. In general, if you don't have a site that sells anything, but it's what we call a brochure, a plain old site, a small site, not huge, you probably could get away with some default settings. But people in the business of websites never get away with default settings. We can't stand it. We're OCD. We have to know what each setting is. And if there's one I need to tweak for my site because I'm special. So you're going to have to look at these things and find out what cornerstone content is, find out where your sitemap is so you can get it into either analytics or get it into Google Search
Webmaster
Console.
Tools, Search Console. Yeah, Search Console.
And then Yoast is going to look at these, and then we're going to take a look at this. Rob, would you talk about this, please?
Sure. So I more often than not run into sites that have a blog post page, but when you click on the post, it redirects to the root and not to the post at the blog root or folder, quote unquote.
Are you
And so the
talking
fix
about
for
this?
that is in the permalink structure, you add that custom structure and it's /blog and then the post name. And that post name has those variables around it because it's automatically populated. So this is telling the installation that all the posts are going to be in the blog or the news or update or whatever folder you want them to be in.
And will that impact my other pages? Will it put every page inside blog?
Only blog posts, only posts, the post type, because yeah, this is only for posts. Blog/news is what you said in the heading. So this is only for post types that are blog/news. You could have other custom post types and they don't necessarily have to go in here in this path. But that's some other configuration you can do. For most straight ahead sites that are lead generating, that aren't e-commerce, this gets you what you need. This puts all of the blog posts neatly in a place that Google can find them, that the RSS feed kicks out, that the sitemap shows nicely, and all those nice things that you need for better SEO.
Now, why would you not do this after you already built your site? It's a year old or two. Would you do that? Would you change it?
I would first look and see how the site's been indexed and if I wanted to mess with that or not. So I just go to Google and look for the site and see if it's in there. If they have, the site tools enabled from Google, I'd look at that, see the percentage of tools, percentage of pages indexed versus not, and make a decision. But I like when we do fresh builds of sites, I like to set up news and blog this way. It's just it seems to me to be a better architected deliverable than to do it any other way.
So because you were smart, and when you first built your site, you got rid of that word uncategorized as a category, and you called that news, then everything that's your default. So everything that you check the category news is going to show up in the blog permalink, right?
If you assign that, got to remember how that goes. If you assign that tag to that category, the proper category, yeah, it'll show up in news.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go to the new thing, semi-new thing that Yoast is offering, and that's integrations. When Google, Yoast will integrate with certain things. This is an example. There are more. The screenshot only got the first 5. And SEMrush, if you've never heard of it, is an online tool that helps with keywords and searching. And what is your site? Who's linking to it? All kinds of things about your site.
Yeah.
Wincher is another one. And then there are schema API integrations. And schema is fascinatingly boring. It's extremely boring to talk about, but the stuff that it does is very important. And then we've got other
SEOs don't think it's boring.
Right. And then some integrations that require a premium paid for account. So Rob, tell us about SEMrush and Wincher.
Yeah, so SEMrush, Wincher, and these other SEO tools kind of give you an idea of like how you're indexing, how you're ranking, the health of your site, those kinds of things. We use those tools for keyword research to kind of tell us like if what topics you should be hitting on, what keywords you should fall naturally within content and that sort of thing. Schema to me is not boring at all, and I'll just give an example. So last year I was communications VP for AMA Triangle. They were not ranking for the thing that they do the most of, and that is events and programs in Raleigh. So working with developers, we had them implement the event schema around the events that they schedule, because they schedule events all the time. And then we did a little light optimization on the page where the events and meetups are displayed. And wouldn't you know, after we did that, Google picked up the schema of the events and started showing them for Raleigh meetups.
Okay,
So
Rob, can you
yeah.
tell us what in very few words, what schema actually is?
So schema is a protocol that occurs on the back end that is crawlable and understandable by search engines under a specification that structures the data on the page. And sometimes that influences display, and sometimes it's a duplicate of what's displayed on the page. But the search engines know the difference between the two, and they can more rapidly discern what's on the page when you include schema versus when you don't.
And
a good place to do schema markup is FAQs, questions with answers, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
questions with answers play really well on search engines. They like them.
they certainly can, especially if it's something that a lot of people ask and you have a fully developed, well-qualified answer that's more than just a couple of sentences.
Can you give us an example? Let's say I've got an event on October 10th, and I put it on my webpage as an event, and it says October 10th. What does schema call? How do I tell schema that's an event date? Do I need a plugin?
You might need a plugin, and I think with Yoast, they do the schema API integration with the events calendar. So if you have the events calendar and you add an event to the events calendar, it would be marked up with the events.
So if you get a good
with the
tool,
schema for the
so if you have
API.
a good calendar tool, and the events calendar certainly is one, they probably take care of that. So on a general post, where would I use schema at all?
You could use schema in a lot of places. Yoast specifies schema site-wide for the site identity, and that's not just the site name, but it's also the site address, the site physical address, the phone number, all of these entities that apply to this protocol that are scraped by the search engines. And they sometimes are displayed, sometimes not, but some of them get triggered by certain queries, just like the event schema. When somebody searches for events near me, you'll see a panel show up in search that shows in a very structured way all the events with nice dates, pictures, and a description. That's all from collected schema markup across known sites.
So for a regular person with a regular site, nothing fancy. If I put Yoast on that site, have I taken care of most of the schema I need? If my goal is not to come up first in Google, but you know.
You've got the bases covered.
Okay, good. We're going to move on.
Yeah, there's things that we do with opening and closing hours and that sort of stuff that isn't always covered by Yoast.
Yeah, I know that if you have a store or regular office hours, I knew that one. Okay, so Yoast ships with tools. It comes with an import and export. So if you have a site that you're rebuilding, if you've got any kind of SEO on there, generally you can export it, hopefully, and then you can import it into the new site. And then there's a file editor. Please don't do this unless you absolutely know what you're doing, because it's dangerous. You can change files like your robots.txt or htaccess. Those are files that normally web developers don't mess with, except, I'm sorry, that website owners don't mess with, but developers would edit, and not through your not through your WordPress site.
So I want to underscore something here because I run into this quite a bit. When you developers get ready to put this onto, server, the main server, maybe you have a staging environment, you put it to production. We want to make sure that in Yoast, you have unchecked discourage search engines from indexing the site. Because more often than not, I find clients because their site hasn't been indexed. And all I do is go into WordPress and uncheck that box and do some other stuff. They begin to get indexed. So that's just a pre-flight checklist. If you're not working with an SEO, that's one thing you can do to help your clients get indexed, is uncheck that discourage bots from indexing the site.
I turn that on every single site I start. And after the one time I forgot to uncheck it,
yeah,
and it's humiliating if you're a web person when you forget to uncheck that box. And that's why we started developing on a different server and hiding sites a different way, because you got stupid one day.
yeah.
Okay.
I love the next tool in this list, the bulk editor, because you can do a lot very quickly using the bulk editor, even at a very basic level. If you want, yeah.
So what I'm going to do is go to this site that's running on local, and to go to the bulk editor, we go to, oh, please. Did I not install Yoast? Of course I did. Of course I didn't. Oh my God. Okay, excuse me. We're going to install Yoast and start from the beginning.
All right.
This was on my list to do after you and I had our meeting.
Okay.
And I forgot to do it.
And that duplicate post tool is really helpful too.
I found a very good tool that and you can see up here, it says I'm blocking access to robots. That's exactly what Rob was just talking about.
Yep.
So I'm going to do my first time configuration, and I think, can I get through this without doing anything? Can I just, okay, get me online, save and continue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then
save and continue.
And no,
Save
I do
and
not
continue.
want their email. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
that's it.
Okay, so I'm going to my site dashboard. There's lots of problems.
Of course there is. But over on the so in the Yoast sub menu is tools. And from the tools page, you'd pick up
here's the bulk editor. And the bulk editor is extremely cool. So Rob, tell us what we do here.
Yeah, now obviously you can do some things so you don't wind up with page_ID = 3.
Yeah. Well,
we'll assume you did that.
It's a draft.
But maybe you needed a new page title, because you look at the existing title, which is none in the existing Yoast SEO title, and you just type in a new one right there and click save. And if you do all of these on this, on this screen, and then hit save all, it'll update all of the titles. And then there's another tab up here to do for page descriptions at the top.
And these are the meta descriptions are the things you can also do on the page itself. But if you're doing something in bulk, if you've got a lot of information, don't want to go from page to page or post to post, this is a really nice feature. And the meta description, we're going to talk about them in a little bit, but the meta description is a very good thing to know how to make good. So let's go back here, and we're going to go to the bulk editor, which you just saw. It'll be in the PDF you can download in a few days. And then we're going to now go to bulk page, bulk, focus keywords. Okay. I think this is one of probably the most important parts, or the one, if you do it well, it's going to help you a lot. So Rob, tell us what keywords are. And you can see from where the arrow's pointing, where that little red light is, Yoast does things by lights. When you see where the light is, the page doesn't have good SEO.
So the free version of Yoast tracks your optimization against one keyword
or short key phrase,
keyword, phrase. You know, what it misses is that you've already done a good job with inserting related keyword phrases into the page, and it doesn't track that at the free level. So at the free level, you get one keyword tracked per page. And
so depending on if you load it up with similar words in the free version, Yoast gives you no credit for it.
This is where a more technical knowledge of SEO could benefit, you know, somebody than just this tool. But at a base level, if you want to optimize a page for one keyword, you can get there with Yoast. What you'll miss out on likely is related traffic on related keyword terms.
One of the examples I ran into when I was doing research and doing PowerPoint about this session was, it claims that Google sees, like if you say the Oscars and then you say the Academy Awards, Google gives you credit for both. Are you saying, because they mean the same thing? Is that right, Rob?
Keywords, unique keywords, you know,
like if my keyword is Academy Awards and I talk about the Oscars, is Google giving me any credit for that? Maybe.
Yeah, they could. You would probably want to mention the Academy Awards as well. And you probably would naturally in that post or that page.
Okay, so the parts of your page there are three parts: your keywords, your title, and your meta description. So as we go through this, we're going to talk about keywords, titles, and meta descriptions. And when you see the result on Google, then you're going to see it laid out this way. The link will be blue until you click it. You type in whatever keywords you want, and your meta description, in this case, I believe is whatever Chris put in, but your meta description should explain what's on the page. So
51% of meta descriptions are rewritten by Google.
Yeah, I found, Rob and I talked about that the other day. It made me very sad because I work a lot on my meta descriptions, and I found out that Google's rewriting them anyway. This is a very small thing, but on your page in the block editor, perhaps in other site page builders, up on the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see this little Yoast thing. If you that means that the Yoast tool is on that page as a block, and you can edit it directly on the page. If you don't see it, you probably want to go to Screen Options, which is up in the right-hand corner of your page, and check the box for Yoast. So if this is a small thing, but it's annoying if you can't find the Yoast tool anywhere. Okay, so now let's jump into keywords. So your focus keyword or phrase is going to be, if you have the free version, the single thing that the search engine's going to look for, the one that Yoast is telling them to look for. So when you pick a keyword or a short key phrase, there are some very basic rules. Don't use the same keyword on 2 different pages or posts on your site. Google sees that as duplicate content. Rob, can you talk about duplicate content for a second?
Yeah, I mean, a mention of it on an upper level page as an introduction to the second level page is perfectly fine. What we want to avoid is, pages where they're 80% similar. 2 pages are 80% similar or more. That's a problem, because Google's going to look at that and go, oh, I don't need to waste my time on that page. And I don't need to waste people who search with us time on that page because it's duplicated content. And so you're actually penalized for duplicate content. And that page may not get ranked at all because it's duplicate content. So
yeah,
you want to avoid duplicate content.
You run into that if you ask a ChatGPT to write your blog post. You're going to find, if you ask it to write 2 or 3 blog posts, you're going to find a lot of duplicate content. So you want to pick a focus key phrase. If you're building a new site, the way we do it is we open a spreadsheet and we put across the page, here's the page name, and here's the name we're going to use for Yoast, the SEO name, where here's the meta description, here are the keywords. And if you've got that in a spreadsheet, I believe on the pro version of Yoast, you can import that spreadsheet, but on the free version, you get to type or paste it in. And in the bulk editor, that's a little easier. And it's not for a site with 500 pages, but you can do that on many sites. So Rob, how do you choose a keyword? And let's go talk about that. So when you set them.
Yeah, so when you get to this point and you're setting the keyword focus for the page, you've done some things before this. You've gone into one of your SEO tools, or you've looked in, another resource for what should be the focus of the page, or what keywords should be included in the page. And that research goes into that spreadsheet that Sue set up. And then you write or have written the content around those keywords.
So when you get them and you've got this, you can then go research a keyword. There are some
and this kind of talk gets into the idea of cornerstone content versus non-cornerstone
solve that,
content.
Rob. What is cornerstone content?
So cornerstone content really is like a main service page or a sub-service page. Those are cornerstone pieces of content. You're gonna hub and spoke this. You're gonna build out other pages that link back to that page, that support that page, but that page itself is going to be exhaustive in its explanation of whatever it is. Like 500, this isn't a 500 word page. This is 1,000, 1,200 word page, and it answers everything that you can ask about a topic. On my personal blog, before the flooring retailers caught on to my tactic, I was getting waves of traffic because I was comparing laminate flooring that was only available in Lowe's and Home Depot to each other. So I was getting a huge wave of organic traffic, and I was ranking very high for what's the difference between this Pergo laminate flooring at Lowe's versus this Pergo laminate flooring at Home Depot.
Rob, is that your main site, or is that a different site?
So, let me just check something before we get into all of that.
This is Rob's business site, and if you want to know how to SEO pages, go visit Rob's site and click on some pages. So if I go to his web design page,
Ergo XP versus
take a look
Outlast.
at his link.
Yeah, so if you Google Pergo XP versus Outlast,
How do you spell that?
Pergo, you spell it
P-E-R-G?
PERGO space XP VS, space between that VS,
Outlast?
Outlast. And what should pop up fairly high is my blog post on it. But you see how everybody copied me? So Flooring Clarity copied me because I wrote that post years ago. And it still gets a fair amount of organic search traffic. So when you've optimized the page, you get the benefit of organic traffic, and you'll see that happen in your analytics.
And this is at robbainbinder.com.
Right. And I wrote this in 2016.
Wow. And
Yeah.
you've still got basically the first unsponsored post, just
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Well
And it still
done.
gets people asking questions in the comments. It's the
Yeah.
funniest, it's the most entertaining thing. Yeah. So anyways, so setting the keyword focus to not just one keyword, but more than one keyword can be very beneficial to your pages on your sites
I'd almost
or your
call
client
that-
sites.
I would have called that long tail, but I don't think it is. In general, when you're doing SEO, and this usually, not never, these kinds of pages don't need you to spend. I used to tell clients who were doing their own SEO after they listened to a session like this, I call them snow days because I'm a New Yorker. And on a snow day, you do something that you just wouldn't do because you're busy during the week. I said, go pick out one page and do some of this SEO for it. And when we get into rewriting copy in a sec, we'll talk about it. But for the, you don't usually need it on these kinds of pages. Every single post, Rob, do you maximize SEO on every single post you write?
Absolutely. There's an
Okay.
intention behind every post that I write, so it's optimized for something.
All right, so we can just cross that out now on my.
I think I would. Yeah.
Okay.
Archive
Okay.
pages, yeah, you don't spend any time on those. You might even exclude those. Contact page, there's some opportunity with a contact page. Don't ignore a contact page.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about kinds of keywords. An interesting thing happened to a friend of mine maybe a year ago. She writes many blogs, but one of her blogs is about kids that were the age of her kids at the time, which was someplace between 11 and 14 or 15, someplace in there. And she called them tweens because that's what they were called, the kids that were not quite teenagers. Anyway, one day Google dropped her and dropped the word tween because the bad people, the kiddie porn people, had sort of kidnapped that word.
Co-opted it.
Thank you. Co-op is a much better word. And sites that had the word tween on them were getting downgraded or not included in search results. So when we found it out, I mean, yeah, she had a lot of rewriting to do, but that'll happen. It was weird. So negative keywords are tricky. So Rob,
so you mean bad keywords. So like now, keywords with a bad connotation.
Yes. Like what? Got an example off the top of your head?
I mean, you gave an example.
Okay.
Like it's something that's untoward that you don't want to be known for. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you knew it, you wouldn't write about it. So chances of you ranking for it, at least when you first wrote it, are pretty low. But if usage of the word changes, you could become ranked for something that, is not great.
There are major law enforcement things happening and about especially child pornographers. They're doing a lot of stuff with, do you remember Chris? What's Chris's last name? Krebs, who used to be the director of CISA and the technology part of the US government. Chris Krebs is amazing. He has 5 kids, used to work for Microsoft, made a heck of a lot of money, moved his whole basketball team, his 5 kids and his wife, to the East Coast to work for the government, and gave up 75% of his salary to do that.
Yeah.
And when we had the election, Chris set up 2 people in every state. One was the Secretary of State, and the other was somebody who was in the election, I don't know, worked in elections. And he got every single one of them security clearance, so that whenever there was a problem, he could talk to them because they were all secure and knew about it. It was an amazingly smart thing to do. So when Chris does stuff, I pay attention. He's in private practice now, and he told me that they have eliminated 61% of child pornographers around the world. And they're doing it with what Rob's talking about, words that mean certain things or could mean more than one thing, and we're being co-opted by bad people. So I'm kind of happy about that. Just stay away from those words. Now, meta keywords are probably the big ones that you're going to do on your own.
You can ignore that field.
Which one?
The meta keywords field.
Okay. And then we've got PPC keywords, pay-per-click, which are researched. Usually, if you're doing your own, like Google Ads or something like that, then you should know what they are. If somebody's doing it for you, you want to pay attention to the words they're using, because that's what you should be writing about. You should be supporting those keywords with your blog posts, with other things. Then we've got SEO keywords, and then we've got popular keywords. For example, in my business, we work with authors. We do 3 basic things, but one of them is we work with authors who want to write electronic books, and they don't know how to do that. They can write the book, but they don't know how to get it in the format and the thing. So anyway, if I tried to use a keyword like ebooks for a page on my website, I would be competing with huge companies that do that. And that's not what I sell. That's not what we do. So I don't use keywords like that. I use more specific things like what Rob is talking about with the flooring comparison. And they may be considered long tail keywords. It's a word I like. But let's go back to high school, where you learned what a bell curve was. And a bell curve is like, here's all the answers people gave to a question. Most people got it right here, and this is where it started to find there. So the people who are out at those ends, that's the long tail. So if you own a shop that sells hobby stuff, and you've got all your things, your keywords about you sell paper and pens and ink and scissors. Well, maybe you sell old British sailing ship model kits. Now, that's not something that the people who do scrapbooking want. There's very few people who want them, but there are people who want them. That becomes a long tail keyword, because very few people want it, but the people who want it, you have a good chance of coming up. Rob, would you call that an accurate description of long tail? Sort of.
Yeah, and sometimes it's really just unintentional words that you put together, and you didn't even know it, because it comes out of natural writing. And for one client, a dentist, we put together a website, and we put together a blog post. We do blog posts every month for them. And this one topic like brings more traffic to the site than any page on their website because of what it was written about. So there's real power in these long-tail keywords.
Okay, so where do you find your keywords? There are free places and there are paid places. Google Keyword Planner is terrific. I've used it a lot. It'll show you when you tell them what keyword you're thinking about, it'll show you what your competition is. It'll show you how many people are using it. And I think it shows you if it was in an ad, how much it would cost because that brings us back to the $50,000 BMW keyword. Yoast has a suggest site where they'll suggest keywords. You put in a few words and they'll give you keywords. Google Trends has it. And there's an interesting one that I have some respect for with Google. If I go to Google and search for ebook editors and cover, and let me just go back to editors. You see all these words that are coming up down here? This is these are searches Google's AI is thinking you might want to say next. When you ask a question, like I did earlier today, how do I print a WordPress site and it was PDF. And when you take a look at all these choices, it's kind of guessing what I want. This is one of the ways you can pick some keywords out.
So the people also ask, what I was referring to is when you complete that search, go down the page and you see the people also ask right there. People also ask right there.
Another good place to get excellent, because I use these. And if I use them, they work.
Because what a lot of people don't understand is that these results are not real time. These are not live search results. These are a copy of what exists in Google search index that's pretty fresh, but it is not linking to your site in any kind of real time, but it has a link cached in its vast data warehouse
and
that it's then providing.
I don't know if you noticed it, but each time I opened and closed one of these, more got added down here. And I think
it's a refinement.
That is Google saying, oh, she didn't like that answer, so let me give her some more.
Right. So to find out what you want, Google might give you auto suggestions based on your search patterns. Google wants to be the world's answer engine. They want to give the best answer to the user for the given query. Okay,
so here's where you can find keywords. Yep. Now, we don't have all that much time, but let's talk about your SEO title. In the search results, the SEO title is often in blue. The URL for it can show up in green. I don't know if we're still doing this, but the meta description is in black. So
depends on the browser you use. It may vary a little bit. What does happen though in search results is when the searcher's keyword matches what's been shown in the results, it'll get a little bolding.
Okay, so on this particular graphic down here, the title you choose in Yoast to be your SEO title will most often show up here in the browser tab. Now, this site has absolutely no SEO on it. So it's just using the name of the page and the company name. That's the actual name of the site. If I go to why people click, then you can see that the browser tab shows that. So the name that you give to it is going to show up more than likely in the browser tab. It's one of the first things Google looks at. So you want to give your page a good name. It shouldn't be about. About is not a good name because there's 12 million abouts. So maybe if it's about Rob, it would be about Rob Einbinder, Google
Right.
expert or something like that. So you need a title. And how much title space do you have? Google will rewrite your title if it doesn't match your content. And then you've
Yoast will tell you if your title's gone to what it thinks is too long. So that's a good.
Right. And the length is not characters. The length is pixels. So it's 600 pixels. And what that means is if you use W's in your words, you've used more pixels than if you use the lowercase I. And it's a strange way of doing it, but you get 600 pixels. So make a good name that isn't longer than what Yoast allows. Try to get your keyword into the title. And this thing about the site name, which kind of automatically shows up at the end, you can get rid of that. If you're Coca-Cola, people know who you are and they're going to click that link. But if you're me, it doesn't help to say SuePolinsky.com in the title at the end.
Some recent experiments done by other SEOs in SEO titles suggest that if you're a big brand that's known, you don't probably need the site name in the title tag. And if you're a lesser known brand that's really going after a different head term, you probably don't need the site name in the title tag.
Okay, so now we're going to look at slugs. The slug is the actual link to the page.
Yep.
So Rob, try to keep words like that out of your slug. Make sure the page's focus keyword is in the slug, hopefully at the beginning, and keep it short. It shouldn't be, 40 words, but make it something that's useful. I'm going to go back to Rob's page here, and I'm just going to pick up branding strategy because I did not, and then brand strategy, perfect name, because when people search, they're going to search for brand strategy, and hopefully his will come up. Write your slug. It is the link, and my advice is do this early on. When you start changing slugs or permalinks, same thing. When you start changing them, it could impact a lot of places on your site you've already linked to the page. And then you're going to come up with a bunch of 404s unless you do have a redirect thing going. So if you're going to change slugs, do it early before you submit your site maps.
Or be prepared to do a redirect.
Right. So what we're going to do over here is go to my very plain page. This is a demo site. And we're going to, where I just slapped in some copy from another site. And when we edit it, when we edit it, the little Yoast icon, is right there. I can look at Yoast in my sidebar, or I can scroll down to the bottom. There's a block editor where Yoast is, and I can open that little triangle, and here is probably your familiar Yoast tool. And you can have it show by clicking this, it'll show up in the sidebar, same tool. Shows up in the sidebar, you just have to open and close things, or it can show up at the bottom of your page. The focus keyword goes there. You can pick get related keywords. It's showing me the mobile result because that's first with Google. And then you get to put in the name of your page and your slug.
And so this right here, the SEO title, is where you can pull out the things you don't want to display on that page's title.
Here's what it looks like now. And when I just backspace out site title, that goes away. And then I backspace out the separator, which was the dash. But if I ever want to put them back, I click insert variable and it tells me the ones that aren't there yet. And if I decide I want the primary, I don't know why I would want it, but the primary category, I can click that. And it will show up. I don't have a category on this one, but it'll show up. So the green line tells you how much space you have to keep writing. So if I took out this title because it's silly, and I wrote, this is my SEO title for this page, if I did that, that's would show up in Google search results, if it ever came up. And then we get to the meta description. Rob, tell me why this is so important.
Yeah, so the meta description can be treated almost like a call to action to encourage someone to click on the page. And my site's probably not, our agency site's probably not perfect, but you generally would write a meta description that would attract attention and cause someone to click on the page. Because when that meta description shows up in Google's index, you have a shot to attract a click. Studies show that position 1 gets the vast majority of the clicks. So if your page ranks in first position, you're getting the most clicks for that search term. And that's independent of what Google personalizes for you when you're logged in. But you've got this overwhelming number of searches that will land on your page if you've got a well-written meta description.
Okay, Google also gives you options for readability. And of course, I'm sure you're mostly familiar with the red, green, and yellow lights. It also gives you a social page where you don't get the preview in free, but you can say what picture I want to put on for this page. If I share it on Facebook, what image do I want to use? You can put in a Facebook title and a Facebook description, and the same for Twitter. I believe you only get those two for free. Is that right, Rob?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if you
Yeah.
pay money, you can have all the others like Instagram and all that stuff. And then we've got schema. And
I
so
think you just get the preview with the bump up on paid on that one.
So it's pretty much what kind of page is this? And what kind of article is this? And the article type used to confuse me until I had it explained to me by somebody that he thought the difference between blog posts and articles was almost the difference between news posts on a blog and newspapers who were writing magazine articles. I just want to get through this. I know Rob's got a hard stop at 8 o'clock. There on the PDF, you'll be able to get some examples of what makes good technical descriptions, how we build one. We just talked about that. The parts and pieces, we talked about that when we did it, and then we get the lights. And Rob, for your swan song, because I know you have to leave, can you tell me what's your policy on red and green lights, and what do you think of them?
It's only a guideline. It's only a guideline. If you chase green, you're going to miss out on some traffic if you're using the free version. It's a great guide to get you going. And a lot of the things that it talks about in the good results is really helpful. But when you're truly optimizing a page, you're not just chasing one keyword phrase. So I have problems with you absolutely following this down to the letter.
And my daughter, who is also an SEO fairly much expert, said the same thing. And that's why the last slide says, don't chase green lights. Cause when I showed this to Rob the other day, when we were meeting, he said, oh, Lauren looked at this, right? And the answer is, yeah,
Yeah.
that's her phrase. Don't chase green lights.
Right.
And so you want to think this session has been about using the free version of Yoast to do as much SEO on your site as you can with the free version of Yoast. It's very, very popular there. So we wanted to make sure we covered it. And the last piece of it is, if you have a site that is making money or you want it to make money, it's important. It's where you get your clients or sell your goods. You may need to consider paying for this and getting the pro version. I honestly don't know how much it costs, but it's
Please fail to read you your Marin.
like, I know what that was about. But you want to consider at some point paying for things, because I spun up this site on local, and by habit, when I put my starter site there, it threw in iTheme security and iTheme sync, and it's probably got backup buddy. And for the most part, that was a silly
Yoast-
thing to add. But
Yoast Premium is $99 a year
for one site,
for one site.
do they offer packages?
I could look at that.
And the
Let's
guy
see.
who started this, I believe his name is Joost, Joost, but you don't
Mhm.
pronounce the J, so that's where Yoast came from for the Americans. And he left the company. He's working with, I think his wife is running it, but he's working with a nonprofit, I think. He really accomplished a lot. He pretty much impacted the internet, and good guy. So I know Rob's got to cut out. If you've got a question for Rob, and he,
Yeah, I'm good to hang out for a few more minutes for
Okay.
questions. It's
So
all
Jean,
good.
do you have any questions? Or Laura or Tanner, anybody got questions for Rob? Doesn't have to be about exactly what we just talked about.
I am brand new to Yoast, so all of this has been fascinating to me. So I don't know enough to know what to ask. So great job, both of you. Thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
in a couple of days, I'll get the recording to Chris and the PDF of this, and you'll be able to download it. So what I'm going to do is stop the recording.
Mhm.